and 10-second count. Welcome everybody to a very special Q&A. We've got a full region, we've got a live stream. For those of you who can't see the live stream, go to, actually I'm going to put the link in local. If I can just paste it and shout it. This is held in voice. If you're not able to hear voice, well, hopefully you can hear voice. We have a very special guest today. We've got Game Geezer to my left, that's your right. Game Geezer is also known as Dennis Harper from SLGo. Say hi, Dennis.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here. Thank you.
And what is your title at OnLive?
I'm a senior product manager, which means I just run the entire project, essentially, from defining what it looks like, how it feels, and then interfacing with the engineers to get the job done, basically.
You're kind of like the go-to person, the cat herder almost.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're the little CEO of a project, basically. And so, if anything goes wrong, it's your fault.
I know how that is.
It's a lot of persuasion to get the things you need to get the job done. Basically. Cat
herding.
Yeah, exactly.
And we have Letta to my right. That's your left, folks. And Letta is, obviously everybody knows who Letta is. And we've got Ed here as well. Say hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
For those of you in the audience, if you have questions, please send them to Letta in an IM. And when we get to the Q&A or the questions part of the Q&A, then Letta will forward those to Dennis or myself or Ed.
Where's the audio coming from, folks?
No, I'm being told I've got bad audio.
No, it's not you. It's somebody in the audience. Awan me.
Is that being taken care of, or do I have to do something about that?
If you want me to, I can do something about it right now.
Okay, let's just do something about that, and I'll keep going. Sorry, folks, just technical difficulties as always at the last minute. Okay, so I gather that's taken care of?
Done.
Okay, thank you. Questions, please send them to Letta in an IM. And when we get to the questions section of the Q&A, then Letta will forward those to myself, Dennis, or Ed, or whoever they're directed to. Your questions can be about anything. They can be criticisms. You name it. This is your chance to voice your opinions and whatnot with us, and we'll address them as best we can. Dennis.
Yes, ma'am.
So everybody here, I think pretty much everybody knows or remembers SLGo when you launched with Linden Lab.
Right.
What brought you to approach us?
What happened was, well, if you want to go back, we started a partnership with Linden Lab probably in, I would say, May of 2012, something like that. And one of the investors of our company, a man named Gary Lauder, was very interested in Second Life and he thought that bringing our OnLive service to Second Life was a really good idea. And so we went directly to Linden to get a partnership there. The project was started, and everything was based around the Linden viewer, of course, at that point. I came into the project in about November of 2012, and it was well underway, and I believe that some of the community had already taken part in a beta study that we had done. I don't know if anybody in the audience had done that. I know NRPay did, and some of the other bloggers had iPad versions and Android versions, and so it was well on its way when I took over the project, and it was my job to just close it down and get it published, which we did in March of 2013. And at that point, we went out with a pricing model that was just bad. It was a metered billing pricing model.
I remember, yeah.
And it was, pay by the minute, essentially. The reason we originally did that was we didn't know. We had no clue about how people were going to be using this product. And our costs to run, data centers and servers and all the bandwidth that we have, it was a little frightening to sort of turn on a switch and say to the Second Life community, go ahead, use it as much as you want. Because that we had no clue of how often or how much that they'd be using it. And because Second Lifers use they used Second Life in a much different way than a normal game would be.
They were logged in all the time. Right,
exactly. You're logged in all the time. You're in your sessions are quite the sessions of that we see on a Second Life compared to a normal game are 10 times longer than a normal game would be. And in addition, there's more connections per day. So but we weren't doing we had a really bad reaction from the public with this metered billing model. But we did some studies. We figured out that that we could probably get away with an unlimited subscription for $10 a month. And so we put that in place. And as soon as we put that in place, we got some traction. We started moving up, and at that point, it just kept going. And then we released an iPad version of the same. It was always available on Android. And at that point, what happened was we were looking to doing anything to improve or to expand the brand or the product. And we knew about Firestorm from the very beginning. In fact, I'm not quite sure why the original people didn't start with Firestorm. Did they ever contact you, Jessica?
No. In fact, we didn't. None of us really even heard of OnLive until the big announcement by Linen Lab, and it was actually a surprise to everybody.
Yeah, that's really surprising to me because your market share is so much larger, and the audience is so much bigger, and we just felt that this was a really good way to bring the OnLive experience to a wider audience. And what we're really focusing on is we think that we can bring a really good experience to people who have older or aging computers. That's really I think, Jessica, when we were first talking, that's exactly what we had discussed. That's
right, because you had first approached me about it. And because of as all of our users know, that we're very sort of anti-profit, and so I had some hesitations because here's a company wanting to provide Firestorm but at a fee, and so I wasn't too keen on that. But when you pointed out that most of or at least a large portion of your subscriptions are actually people using older computers, it struck a key with me, and because I know we have so many people. Because we hear from them all the time. Every time we do a new version that goes out, and it becomes a heavier hit on people's computers. So we hear complaints from people with XP machines and old Vista machines that can't use Firestorm anymore. And now that we have this policy of blocking our older versions to keep people on, compatible with the technology as it advances in Second Life, people are being pushed out of Second Life. So when you had mentioned that, it gave me some food for thought, and I thought about it for a little while, and I thought, at $9.95 a month, it's not expensive. It's not free like Firestorm is, but it's not expensive. On the other hand, you guys are providing this streaming service. You've got to pay for your servers and your staff, your talent, your bandwidth, and all these things. And I can't imagine that that OnLive is making very much from $9.95 a month.
I'd like to share those numbers, but let me just put it this way: we're very excited to have Firestorm, and whether we break even or not is not really an issue right now. And what we're really looking to do is just expand our usage and our audience, because you're absolutely right. The big data centers and the bandwidth and the and all the maintenance and the operations crews is a very, very, very expensive operation, and we have to do something to minimize our at least minimize our costs. So that's why it's not free. It's a service that you can think of it sort of like, I don't know if you remember or if anybody has visited an internet cafe. You go to an internet cafe because they have really nice computers, and you can go and you can play your MMO or otherwise on a nice computer and log in with your account, and you can have a really nice experience. And that's essentially the model that we have, is that what SLGo is and what OnLive does is it allows you to essentially rent a supercomputer in the cloud that you can experience your game on or play Second Life on. And that's really the model. And so that the idea is that we're not really selling you a viewer. That's not what we're doing. We're not a viewer at all. We're using the Linden viewer, and we're using Firestorm. We're a delivery service. We let you experience your Second Life on a supercomputer and deliver it right to your old Mac or PC or even your laptop computer. And so people sometimes label us as a viewer, and I think that's a sort of a misnomer.
Well, I think part of that was when the original announcement through Linden Lab with the SL viewer with SLGo originally. It was, I think a lot of people were confused because they thought Linden Lab was actually behind the platform and had that pricing model, and so there was a lot of confusion there.
Right, and I'm the product manager of this service of SLGo, and I will readily admit that this is not something that everybody needs, and it's not something that everybody wants. But it is an interesting way to soup up your old computer. And also we have a mobile aspect as well with the Linden viewer. We have plans to bring mobile to Firestorm as well, but that takes a little bit more doing.
I'm gonna grief you about that question.
Yeah, good.
So there have been a lot of people complaining. I've seen, like, in our blog comments, and we've seen in our support groups people saying, why would I want this? I don't need this. And I think people need to understand that if you've got like a really good computer or even a fairly decent computer, this is of really no use to you, and it wasn't aimed toward you in the first place. It's aimed towards people who can find it beneficial to them. And I can assure you there's quite a few people in SL that are benefiting from it, and I'm glad to hear that. In fact, Dennis, how's the uptake been?
Like I said, I can't give you exact numbers, but it's scary. It's really scary when Firestorm came out. I mean, it was the hockey stick term absolutely applies here. We got a shot that was that OnLive has never actually seen before in terms of an uptake of a product. So very, very happy with how it's going. But again, what's happening is that we're giving away free trials, right? It's a week free, and so it's no cost that you can come in and try the service and see if it works for you. If it doesn't, you can cancel, and you never get charged a dime. So you can figure out if SLGo is right for you or if it works for you, and if it doesn't cost you anything. But if it does, then you go into what I think is a very affordable subscription for $10 a month, and actually I use SLGo on my laptop all the time because I cannot run these viewers, especially if I want to see, ultra graphics or the shadows, it just doesn't work. My work laptop just shuts down in those situations. So I use SLGo to view Firestorm or the Lineviewer all the time. And so it does have an application. It's interesting when you look at the blog comments too, and it's almost a love-hate relationship. if you've noticed, it's either, wow, this is a really cool thing and I really like the idea, or it's, why would I ever want to have this thing?
Well, and in fairness, there's been we've had some growing pains, haven't we, with the release of Firestorm as well.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we're tweaking the dials, making things work better. Firestorm, well, actually, Second Life in general is a different kind of a beast than a normal video game is, because the application carries around literally gigabytes of what we call cache data. And the cache data is a huge chunk of stuff that makes it easier to access your textures and your objects and that sort of thing. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with that. But the way our service works from a technical viewpoint is that that cache has to be sort of carried around with you in your session. So when you log into SLGo and we choose a server for you, we have to take that cache file and then instantiate it on that particular service. So a big file takes, just like on your home PC, it takes a while to copy that file. And so we were getting situations where you were logging in to SLGo or to Firestorm, and if you exited your session and you tried to log in, quickly, it wouldn't let you. You'd get an error, and this was because the system was busy copying this really huge file to a site so that it could save your data.
Maybe just to put it into layman terms, so basically you've got, let's say, a data center with X number of machines that people are connecting to. So a user is connected to one of those machines. When that user logs out, then that machine has to propagate its cache, copy the cache of your session to all the other machines in that site. Is that accurate?
Well, it doesn't have to copy to all the other machines. What happens is when you exit your session, we know that you've changed things. You've changed your settings. You've got new stuff in your cache. So we actually know all of the things that you've modified on your system, and we copy those to a secure encrypted area where on what we call a site. So one site might have hundreds and hundreds of different servers, and so we have one appliance, or a NetApp appliance, which is a big storage bin that's hooked to the site that holds your data. And then when you go back to that site and you hook up to another computer, we go to that site's storage area and we take your cache and your settings and we restore it to a particular server. So that's kind of how it works. And so we were getting some reports of these disconnections, or they couldn't connect, and so we put in a fix where we really eliminated the storing the cache at all. And so what happens is we flush the cache after you exit the game. And what happens at that point is that there's very little data then that needs to be carried around. You have your settings, so the settings are preserved. And then when you log back in, then the cache then begins to operate again. And you have a 2 gigabyte local cache that will operate just like you would at your local machine. So that's some of the startup issues. I mean, I was up till 11 or 12 on Friday night trying to tweak some dials and get this thing right for the holidays, and we think we got a version. Oh, by the way, Jessica, your latest bug fix version is up there.
Oh, excellent! Yeah, and worth pointing out to people too that the SL Viewer default cache size is 512, and Firestorm defaults to 2 gigabytes in size. So OnLive was actually dealing with a much larger cache per user, plus this initial rush of users as well signing up. You were talking a little bit about encryption. So there have been a few questions that have come to me about How secure are the users' SL passwords, their chat logs, because the chat logs are being stored on your site as well? That kind of thing. What is your process involved with securing these things?
Number one, you've got to realize that not in any way.
Have we lost you?
Oh, I'd like to. Sorry. I'd like to know that that SLGo or OnLive in no way ever associates any Second Life data or login or session with any SLGo user. We don't know who your avatar is. We don't know how you log in. You can log in with anything you want in Second Life. We don't know who that is. And any of the data that is changed or saved is encrypted and put in a store so that it's restored the next time you have it. And no one is crawling through data and trying to decrypt it. The passwords that you type into SLGo are completely private to you. We have nothing. We don't track anything like that. There's a keyboard input. We don't know you're typing a password or you're chatting. We have no idea. It's just a keyboard stream that we see. So there's nothing that we would be able to save or otherwise, and your privacy is absolutely guaranteed when you use SLGo. In fact, it would be hard for us to even link your. At one time, we were thinking of why don't we make it easy for the users, and we can link their Second Life account to their SLGo account. So when they log into SLGo, that they will already have their Second Life passwords, and part of this was because we didn't do that was because of this privacy issue.
Right.
We didn't want to have that happen. So it requires you to log in separately to SLGo.
So anybody that has concerns with their passwords and stuff, that should pretty much answer that. It's encrypted, can't be read, it's safe.
That's correct. I mean, we absolutely value your privacy, and it's interesting. And we were talking about this, Jessica, between ourselves too. Is that we try to from the online viewpoint. And as product manager, I'm trying to understand, who is the audience, who are the people using this, and who is the second lifer, and why are they doing this, and what do they need? And one of the things they need is privacy. And let me give you an example. Is that we actually have an affiliate program that we have in place. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, Jessica, but what you can do is you can sign up on the SLGo website and we generate a special link for you. And anybody who uses that link to sign up for SLGo and converts to a user, that original affiliate or the person who puts the link up gets paid $10. So it's like a $10 per user that we pay out to anybody that refers another customer to us, which is actually really, really a huge incentive, right? So
under that guise, then we've just referred a whole lot of people to you.
Well, they haven't converted yet, so
oh damn, it's worth a try.
But you're certainly welcome to put up an affiliate link on your website if you want to. But what I was going to say is that right now the affiliate program isn't doing that well for us, and I think it's because of this Second Life mentality, is that no one really wants to advertise that they are a person and they are in Second Life. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they value their anonymity and they want to stay that way. And
one of the nice things about Second Life is that it is a quote unquote second life.
Exactly. And so And also it's also posed a challenge to us as well, is that the Second Life community is very sealed, I suppose is a good word, is that it's really hard to get in. We don't really know, like, how would we advertise to the Second Life community? It's really hard to know how to do that because we don't know where they go, or we don't know what they use, and we don't know, what publications or what websites they go to. And so we do a lot of outreach to bloggers, which I think is a good way. But I'm sure that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of Second Life users that have never used us and don't really, or maybe have heard of us, but don't really understand what we do.
In-world presence.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
Well, here I am.
And this is where Ed comes in, because Ed wants to corner you on something here. Go ahead, Ed.
Actually, I want to corner him on a couple of things, but I'll start with an in-world presence. We're seeing an awful lot of questions in our support group about problems people are having, not being able to get their credit card accepted, different things, the errors that they're having. Mm-hmm. What are the chances of some sort of in-world presence or even office hours where people could go to a region and talk to a representative from your company one-on-one?
Well, we have a very, very engaged customer service team. In fact, one of the customer service representatives is a avid Second Life player, and so we're trying to understand exactly who these people are. Our customer service people have their own method of tracking bugs, tracking issues. It's probably a lot like you guys do it, and so the best way to get support is to email support@onlive.com, and these guys will answer your questions immediately, and they're very, very, very good. You can also go to support.onlive.com, and there's a knowledge base there that you can look for issues and stuff like that. Oh, by the way, Ed, the credit card issue was a real issue. We actually found that for some reason, European customers could not log into their accounts on the SLGo website, and that's then definitely fixed. That's the right link.
I just want to actually address that a little bit. So, as you said yourself, the Second Life people are generally somewhat private, and a lot of people have an issue with either they don't have a credit card, or they don't have a PayPal, or they don't want to reveal their credit card in PayPal. So there's people asking about other alternative ways of signing up for SLGo. Is there any kind of ideas like maybe Linden payments? We're actually trying really hard to figure out a way to do in-world payments. By the way, on the PayPal front, people should realize that signing into PayPal is done completely on the PayPal site. We have no insight into your PayPal login or other. I mean, this is the way the PayPal works, and I think that we put PayPal in because of that, because we realized that Second Life customers really wanted PayPal, and I think that a lot of I've heard, I guess, that a lot of Second Life accounts are linked to their PayPal accounts directly, and they can in fact that's how mine is, and so you can exchange Lindens back and forth in your PayPal account, so it makes it a little bit easier in terms of paying with in-world payments. But we do really want to put together ways to pay with Lindens. We're looking at ways to on some partner sites to put up SLGo subscriptions in a marketplace where you can pay with Lindens. There's also a project that we'd like to do a kind of a study to do in-world payments as well. You would go to a special SLGo island, and you would go to a secure booth and sign up there, and you would pay with Lindens, and we'd remind you when your subscription would be due, and you'd come back and renew it if you'd like to. It's a little bit different than our normal subscription method, because there's really no way to make a real subscription inside Second Life. It's worth noting that that technology actually already exists, and there are models that use that technique of having like a vendor in world that sends you a message when it's due and that kind of thing, and they work. It does work.
Yeah. So But can you verify for me that there's no way that we could actually implement a real subscription model rather than like a recurring subscription rather than a non-recurring subscription? Does that make sense?
You could set up a recurring that would automatically withdraw lindens from your SL account, basically.
Oh, really? I thought that was not allowed.
Well, I could be wrong. I usually am.
That would be, okay. If that was the case, I could sell that to my team very easily. What we're worried about is that you get a week of SLGo and you get a reminder, and then your subscription expires, and then it makes it very hard for us to track that user when they're coming back and that sort of thing. We can certainly send you reminders and that sort of thing, a lot like paying for a piece of land or that sort of thing. So definitely looking into alternate methods, and I think that what you'll see next year, actually very, very soon next year, is we're going to do this with a kind of a pilot group. We're going to turn it on for, say, 500 users, and we're going to say, let's cap it at this and see if people are interested, and let's watch their behavior too. That's a thing that's a really important thing. When you're into a product marketing position is one where you really want to know how people behave in terms of their habits, and whether they come back or whether they don't, or whether they let it lapse and then they wait a week and then they come back again. That sort of thing it's important for us to understand that.
Let's go back to
in-world support.
In-world, yeah, because I know it's bugging Ed. So
I'm sitting here bouncing. One of the suggestions that was brought up by some of the team members was the possibility of creating an OnLive group where you could have a couple of your staff pop in a couple times a day and do some moderating, and people could get peer-to-peer help for problems that they're having as well.
That's a really good idea. In fact, I discussed this. It turns out that one of my programmers that is he's a brilliant web engineer. Happens to be a really big Second Life fan, and we talk a lot about how to do this. And he actually suggested having an OnLive group itself and having people come in and sort of moderate that group. So that's a really good suggestion. In fact, we should probably do that right after the new year. I would great stuff.
I think it would be hugely beneficial to the users. One of the things that made Firestorm so popular is not just the viewer, but the OnLive presence, the in-world presence that we have in Second Life, and being available like 24/7. There's the email support at onlive.com, but it's people prefer to just open a group and ask a question and get an answer straight away.
I can guarantee that. If you do open a ticket with support at onlive.com, they will get back to you the next day or sometimes within hours. It's they're a really, really good group of guys, and so I would definitely, if you can do that, it would be definitely a good way to go. But I like your idea, Ed, of the OnLive group too. We do have a person who is in world, and I think that I would be able to get him to moderate that group.
Okay, give us his name so everybody can IM him.
I can't do that right now.
He wouldn't like you much, huh?
I'd have to talk to him first.
Okay, I have one more thing that I'd like to bring up, actually, and that is the talk about the cache issue. Cache in Second Life is very important. Otherwise, you're eating up a ton of bandwidth, both on your own end and on the server side. What are the chances of you possibly setting up a large shared cache that's shared by all the users of OnLive, as opposed to individual ones?
Yeah, that's a really interesting...
When it comes to the texture cache, at least.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. I'm going to have to go back to the engineers and see what that would take. That's a really, I really do like that idea. One thing you should know, though, is that it turns out that, okay, in terms of the bandwidth costs and the streaming costs, they're not, the users of SLGo do not incur that cost. That is incurred by the cloud server that they're playing on.
Yeah.
And it turns out that we have, our servers are co-located in the same data centers as the Linden servers are, just as a matter of fact. And we have huge bandwidth pipes that go between us and them. And so we can stream in textures and objects very, very, very quickly. It's one of the things that is a good selling point for SLGo, is you'll see that it does res-in sims very, very quickly.
Well, okay, that's not our main concern, actually. The main concern is we all know how reliable the asset servers are. Sorry, I have a hard time saying reliable and asset server in the same sentence without joking.
And that's not an issue with OnLive. That's just a Linden issue.
Yeah, it's a Linden issue. And the asset servers themselves are sometimes quite fragile, it seems. I'm sure some Lindens are hating me at the moment for saying that, but that's beside the point.
So what happens is
when the cache gets repopulated, you're pulling information from those servers, putting more stress on the Linden Lab servers. You see where I'm going with that?
And quite often the Linden servers will fail to send or fetch textures, and so having that cache already available speeds things up when the Linden servers fail to. People in SL will tell you they see gray textures all the time, and that's often a result of just unreliability on the back end of things.
Yeah, that's. I really like your idea of a shared cache, because if we could do something like that, that would definitely solve the problem. Just to let you know, I mean, these are great. All these great suggestions, and I'm going to bring them back to the team and see if we can do something about that. In the meantime, we do have a version that does operate, and I don't think that we're putting a huge load onto the Linden servers, because just in terms of volume, we're nothing like 700,000 Firestorm users. It's not like that. We're in the thousands, not into tens of thousands. So we're not a blip on the radar so far. So but the thing is, I'd like to be a blip on the radar. So so we need to fix that before we can do that.
We've got to start going into audience questions in a second. I'm sure one of them is going to be mobile.
Absolutely. As you know, that we have a version of SLGo that using the Linden viewer that runs on mobile with a little sort of a touchpad interface. The reason we don't have the mobile for Firestorm is because it takes more work. The idea of integrating that touchpad mechanism into the application itself is going to take some special code that has to be introduced into the Firestorm, into this specific Firestorm version, and that's going to take some work. So we'll start doing that beginning of next year.
There are a lot of people. When we did our Firestorm Mobile April Fool's joke, it was overwhelming how many people were, first of all, thought it was real, and then were immensely disappointed that it wasn't. And so I think there may be quite a demand for it.
Yeah, I absolutely think that. I mean, I think that Firestorm on mobile would be just awesome. We got to get there, and so I'm going to do everything in my power to see that it gets done.
Folks, it's not going to work on stupid phones. That will be the limitation. Sorry. Not going to get on your Atari. Letta, how are you doing for questions? Do we have many?
We have many.
Oh, dear. Okay, we better get started.
Well, first off, please don't be offended if your question does not get covered, because there are quite a few. So I'm going to be prioritizing by the ones that have been asked repeatedly by several people. And the most popular question is, when will voice be coming to SLGo?
That's a really good question. I think that you could probably target that for Q2 of next year. The reason is because handling voice is going to be, think of how SLGo works. It's running in a server in a cloud somewhere. And when I talk, and I'm like right now, when I talk on a microphone that's around my head, this Firestorm version that I'm running hears the microphone from that PC. So we're going to have to somehow simulate a stream of audio to essentially look like a microphone that is input on a cloud server. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a really difficult technical challenge, and it's not. But I absolutely feel that, from my viewpoint, voice chat is probably one of the top the issues on our roadmap.
I wonder if you'd be able to buffer it, like, so the user is connected to the OnLive service, speaks on voice. That audio is recorded on and buffered on the OnLive system, and then it plays back that to the Linen server, which then can relay it. Yeah, that would be difficult, hey?
I'm not a web engineer, but I do believe that I have been a programmer in the past, Ed. and it's a very, very difficult problem to solve, I think.
But it's definitely on the because voice is very important to people in Second Life.
Of course, look at this. This is the poster child for voice, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're sitting here talking to.
Well, and that's the thing too. A lot of people will use SLGo in crowded places, and generally in crowded places like a place like this, for example, they need voice to be able to hear what's going on.
Right. That's exactly right. I mean, think of this in the future. Sometime, that you could go to the beach with your iPad and chat in SLGo using, or Firestorm using SLGo. Wouldn't that be cool? I mean, that's kind of the dream that I had, that you could take it anywhere. I don't know if you saw that Dragster video of him going all these crazy places with the iPad. But that's the idea. When think of that, you got your microphone plugged into the iPad, and that would be cool. That's definitely a good thing.
Okay, what's next, Letta?
Next up, a couple of different people were wondering, if you subscribe to SLGo, can one account allow you to access SL on more than one computer? Can you use multiple machines for the same account?
Not only can you use multiple machines, you can use multiple devices. I mean, in other words, when you sign up for an SLGo account, you can use your SLGo client on a Mac, on a PC, on your laptop, on your big work computer. Everything is completely portable from device to device. And also, when you could also use SLGo on your mobile device. You could get it. It works on your iPad and your Android tablet. Unfortunately, we don't have Firestorm on there yet, but your SLGo is completely portable on all of those devices and works on every single one.
Great. And it will work on Surface Pro now.
It will work on Surface. Yeah, you just get a Windows client to work on Surface Pro.
A related question was: is this available for iPhone?
iPhone. Okay, so we actually did a test on an iPhone, and we did actually a test on a Galaxy S4, actually my Galaxy S4, and it actually worked, but we cannot recommend the experience to anybody, because think of taking your wonderful 1080 by 1920 display and shrinking it down to the size of a postage stamp and trying to experience Second Life. It just kind of doesn't work. And also the control mechanisms are so small, it becomes very difficult to do anything, because there's a lot of controls in Second Life. And think about the menu controls and trying to, what if you wanted to switch your outfit, or you wanted to go shopping, and you want to touch something, and you have this big, huge, fat finger, and you're not going to have a great idea there. I just saw a comment. It does actually work with a pad, with a gamepad. If you plug a controller in to your PC, you can actually run around with a gamepad. So that actually works too.
If I can interject for just a second, The question about using it on multiple devices, I think, was more geared towards, can you log multiple avatars in at the same time?
That was part of the question from one person, yes.
I'm not quite. I don't quite understand. The answer is that if you, well, I don't know if this is the answer, but the how it works is when you log into SLGo, you have an account that is owned by, or that resides at OnLive. Once you log in, you can use that one account can be used for any Second Life account. You can have, theoretically, you could share an account. You could give somebody else your SLGo credentials. They could log in and they could use it as well. They can't use it at the same time because it's only one account.
I think that's the question. So a lot of people use, and the viewer is not, people do it, and we highly recommend not to. The viewer is not stable when you have multiple instances of the viewer running. But a lot of people will run Firestorm, log in one account, and then they'll launch it again and log in another account. And so they'll have multiple accounts logged into SL at the same time. It gets very confusing. I don't know how they do it, but people do that. I think that's part of the question. The OnLive client only launches one instance, and you can't launch multiple instances of it.
That's correct. If you tried to do that, what would happen is you'd log into your SLGo account, and then as soon as you went to another computer or a different instance of SLGo, you would kick you off the first one because you can only use the OnLive account in one place.
Would that be something that OnLive might consider changing in the future? It's actually quite important to SL users. That's why I asked.
I'm not sure. I'm going to have to go back and check on that because I know that you can run the client in multiple instances. I'm gonna have to take that one back and see what we do.
Okay, so that's something we can look at and be able to answer again later once we get more information from it.
Yeah.
Cool. So there's another set of questions about accounts and specifically about paying pay options. So one person stresses that they like the in-world payment idea. Another person asks, will more pay options be available later? For example, True Pay Safecard or direct banking, as most people in EU countries do not have a credit card and also have no PayPal. And one more person asks why we need a credit card.
It's just the way our systems work. We can't enable your account without some sort of payment instrument that is associated with your account. And it's also the only way that we can, obviously charge you for your subscription before it starts. And like I said, if you don't have a credit card, PayPal's your best bet after that. But the European payment methods that you mentioned before, I mean, those are highly desirable ways for us to go, and it really has to do with we need to see a bit more traction, I suppose, in our European customers before we can put the work in to add those extra payment methods.
Let me also just sort of from a business perspective to help people in kind of in layman terms. Let's say you're offering a service and you give everybody a 7-day free trial with no strings attached, and you don't require payment information or any kind of basically verification of who they are. They'll use that 7 days, and then they'll create a new free account, and then they'll use that 7 days, and then they'll create a new free account, and then they'll use that 7 days. And basically, you've just completely blown your business model. You go bankrupt because everybody's using your free account. That's why you require credit card payment.
That's right. In fact, and I didn't want to actually mention that, Jessica.
No,
because that's exactly what it is that you're preventing abuse. That you can if theoretically, if you had 5 credit cards in your wallet, you could create 5 accounts, and you could have you could go through your wallet creating accounts and have 5 free weeks. Do you see what I'm saying? But the good news is that people run out of credit cards pretty quickly. So
it's unfortunate, but it's actually a side effect of people being dishonest and taking advantage of things.
So, Dennis, you're seeing the downside of working with a team that believes in transparency.
Yeah, we're
Yeah. No, I'm all for transparency. I'll share anything I can with you guys. So.
Okay, so we've got some questions on security and privacy, and after that we can move on to things like performance and functionality. Would you like these one at a time or all at once? So maybe you could answer together.
One at a time.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right. Has the Firestorm team been working with... Oh, well, that's actually more for Firestorm. People on OnLive can watch other people gaming. Is this going to be implemented for SLGo as well? And if so, how does this affect privacy? And will that privacy be configurable?
That's a really good question. We actually... obviously, this person is very familiar with the OnLive service. We do have a feature that we call spectating, and it allows you to to look in on anybody else's game that you want to. We have this feature disabled for all of the SLGo products, and you can probably understand why. I believe that this gets back to this privacy issue. Having a setting, that's actually a nice idea. Is anybody taking notes? Because a lot of good ideas are coming through here.
It'll be recorded.
Yeah. So we need to. I'd like to do something like that. If there was a way that we could essentially, what we could do is we could enable the spectating feature for the product, and you could assist automatically turn it off. We were a little bit concerned, obviously, with all the adult content in Second Life, that many of our OnLive customers are 13 plus, and we didn't want to expose them to some of that stuff.
Okay, and another question about privacy. Just to confirm, if I register to use SLGo, I need to give my real-life payment details, of course, but that does not give anyone in SLGo the ability to then find out my SL avatar name. Is that correct, please?
That's absolutely correct. I think I went over that previously, but there's no way that we actually know that you were actually logging in to SLGo. In fact, into Second Life. In fact, I've asked the engineers this a number of times. I've asked them, so, I'd really like to know when these people actually log in, so that maybe if I know that they're inside the experience, if there's a notification or otherwise that we need to give them, then they say we have no idea. Once they're connected to what we call the app host, which is the cloud server, it's basically on autopilot, and whatever you do is in the privacy of your cloud computer. So we have no idea who you are. We don't know who your avatar is, and like I said before, you can literally use any avatar or log in with anybody that you want.
Okay. So let's move on to some performance and issues questions. Some of my friends have tried SLGo and report unusual lag and visual artifacts. Are there upcoming fixes for these?
I would respond to that by saying that the internet is a very, very fickle place. Being an internet company is very hard because I think I showed Jessica a graph of how our performance is, or how it looks in a lot of different areas. And it's absolutely astounding when you see someone who has 100 megabit connection and they have problems connecting to SLGo.
I'm a good example of that. I've got a 200 megabit per sec down speed and a 15 megabit per sec up speed. And it really, I have the worst trouble running SLGo.
And it's because of what affects us more. I mean, what affects us a lot more than bandwidth is what we call lossy networks. And this is something where, in internet terms, there are things called packets, and they run around the internet, and they contain all of the data that you need to get your whatever internet application serviced. And what SLGo does is how technical can I get here, Jessica?
One of the challenges of this job is speaking technical stuff in a layman term. Good luck.
There's two ways there's no more than two ways, but there are two popular ways that internet applications talk to each other. One is called TCP, and that's the way your browser uses TCP whenever you browse something. And you'll see if you ever go into your router, you'll see a TCP port that's used. Now, TCP is a protocol that's very reliable, because what happens is, if there's ever an error in the internet somewhere, and there are lots of errors in the internet, by the way, the TCP goes back and it says, I didn't get the right thing. Can you give me the right thing? And then it does that until it gets the right thing, and then it delivers it to your browser. Unfortunately, a streaming application that works in real time and has high tolerance for latency cannot do that. So we use another protocol called UDP, and UDP does not check for errors, because it basically says, if I get an error, you got to figure out what to do. And that's what SLGo uses. And because we can't wait for some protocol to correct itself, we need to basically get a packet very quickly and figure out how to decode that stream onto your screen. Unfortunately, when there's lossy networks and these packets don't show up, or they're corrupted anyway, the client on SLGo has to figure out what to do. And what happens is that normally would appear as a kind of a fuzziness, or a kind of a maybe a stop in the stream, or a fuzziness. And we basically have it's one of the things that we actually do, is that there's a very, very technical service that we provide that basically deals with these lossy networks and does adaptive streaming. Adaptive means that as the error count goes up and up and up, we can actually maintain a fairly decent video rate, obviously until it fails. But if you're on a lossy network and you're playing SLGo and you kind of see a fuzziness, or sort of fuzzes out and comes back in again, that means you've experienced some internet problem or internet error that we're trying to deal with. And I wish I could say we could correct your internet problems, but we can't. So some people it's going to work for, because they have clean internet, and some people it's not going to work for. And we can't contact your ISP and tell them, these people have a bad network. And so, and I'm not trying to make an excuse here. I'm just actually I'm actually telling people that if you're on a network and SLGo is not working for you, it's not for you. Don't use it. It's not. You're not going to be happy with it. And if there are problems with your network that you want to fix, then you can try. But like, I know Jessica's going to try. I gave her a dump of her network. What did they ever say? Did you ever say anything about that, or?
No, I never got back to you on it. It's okay. A lot of stuff.
Yeah, a lot. It's like she wanted to know what's going on over the network, and I dumped tons of data on her. And it's one of the things we do, is that we actually track all of this stuff, and we know when things go wrong, and we know why they go wrong. And so we have what we call an ideal case, and we have a less than ideal case. We can compare those two. So so basically, in a nutshell, I'd say try SLGo. It's free. If it doesn't work for your network, or you don't like the way it's fuzzing out, or it's lossy, then don't use it. It's not for everybody, and I'm be the first person to admit that.
By the way, I just want to, because I'm getting IMs about the credit card thing and the trial. Guys, it is free. If you sign up for the 7-day trial, yes, you got to provide a credit card or through PayPal. If you cancel it by the end of that 7 days, nothing will be withdrawn from your card.
That is absolutely correct.
Just as an aside to you, Dennis, people that are experiencing fuzziness and blurry textures, a lot of times turning off HTTP textures in the preferences will help that.
And that's through the viewer. We'll have to talk to you about that, actually.
Yeah, actually, that leads into the next couple of questions, because a couple of people have asked if there's anything that the user can do at their own end to address issues with mostly they're mentioning blurriness and textures, and they're asking, is there anything that you can do, that the user can do at their own end other than adjusting their bandwidth? And on a related note, someone asked if using stream services for SL uses more bandwidth for the user than using SL on their own PC.
I don't know what the bandwidth requirements for Firestorm or the Linden Viewer are, but we can SLGo will run on a network that has 5 megabits per second. It'll run really, really well on a 5 megabits per second. In fact, we've done studies that that show, even with people who have, like I have a measly 20 megabit connection, and at this office we have like the 200 gigabit connection, and SLGo still uses 5 megabits per second. So it's not a great drain on your network. But what's going to kill it, like I said, is the lossiness. And so, for instance, if you have a lot of devices that are hooked to your network, like I have, I know that I can't play SLGo here when I'm listening to my Sonos music system, because the Sonos for some reason is like taking over the internet. And so sometimes with people who have multiple computers on their internet or have a lot of network devices won't have a good time with SLGo. And so that's another consideration, is that you should, again, it's something you should try. If it works for you, it's great. If it doesn't, don't use it. Or another thing, and I think Jessica actually experienced this too. If you're doing some very, very demanding network operation on your computer, for instance, if you're uploading terabytes of data, SLGo is probably not going to like that too much, because there's just too much traffic on the system for SLGo to operate properly. So it needs a kind of a quiet internet, but it doesn't need a lot of bandwidth. I hope that answers that question. Was there another part of that question that I missed, Letty?
Yeah, the first part was whether there's anything besides adjusting bandwidth that the user is able to do. For instance, in regular Firestorm, one of the things that we've recommended as support when people have fuzzy texture issues is to deactivate HTTP textures, or at least we did more so in the past than now that server-side baking happens, but still it may sometimes be relevant. So is there anything that the user can do at their end in terms of adjusting settings, possibly in FS or on their computer?
Yeah, there is, if you open up the OnLive client on the desktop and don't log in, there's an advanced button that you can go to, and there are some settings in there that you can adjust in terms of how much bandwidth that you want that client to use. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing that you should realize is that we stream in 720p, which is technically HD, but it's not 1080p. So what's going to happen is, if you have a nice big HD display at 1080p and you blow up our stream at 720, it's going to look a little blurry. We would like to be able to, in fact, we have the capability of streaming at 1080p, but that would, think of the band, that is like a demand of 12 times more bandwidth than that we have now. And so most of the users in the world would not be able to handle streaming HD quality video to their desktop.
What about providing it as an option? Because I noticed for myself, I run 1920 by 1080, and even when things are fully loaded in, it's still a little bit blurry for me at that resolution. And also, some of the complaints we've seen is that people who are used to having their viewer in that resolution have a lot more space behind their chat windows and floaters for the scene, but at 720, there's just not a whole lot of room to have a chat and your scene.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to have to take that back to the engineers, because, like I said, it's a setting that we have on per server essentially, and I'm sure we would have to do many experiments and see what the requirements would be. So that's something I'm going to have to take back to the engineers.
And it's probably worth pointing out just quickly for everyone in the audience and watching the recording in the stream. the amount of money OnLive is not getting rich from $9.95 a month unlimited use, and so the amount of subscriptions that they get will somewhat depend on how much more they can develop as well. So just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I also want to remind everybody that even though the stream itself is at 720p, the server is running at full HD 1020p resolution. I mean 1080p resolution, and so if you're worried about photography or taking screenshots, the servers handle all of that stuff, and you can use the settings to take very, very high resolution photography, and I've done so I know that works.
And I'll point out, those of you who didn't read the blog post, I know we got questions backing up and we're already past our hour, but there's plans in the future to enable saving screenshots from in Second Life or through the OnLive client to your computer, and also uploading from your computer into the viewer running on the OnLive client, so that you can upload textures into Second Life. That's stuff that will come.
That's right.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Letta.
So you might have just covered this just now, but just to make sure, there actually was a specific question on will there be support for changing the display resolution using SLGo?
Like I said, the display is you got to think of this as, think of when you're playing SLGo that you're watching a movie. That's really as close as I can get to what's really going on, is that you're watching Netflix stream a movie to you, and this movie is in 720p. So there's no way you can really change that resolution. But like I said, the server is running at a completely different resolution. So again, photography will work, video will work if you needed to do that.
Okay. Let's see. We've got about 12 questions that I wasn't able to combine into one another. So let me see. Will SL graphics crashers crash the...
I didn't get that.
Dennis might not know how to answer that.
Yeah, that might... go ahead, Jess.
Yeah, so OnLive is the OnLive is running a higher computer than the average person has, I would guess, and so video crashers will have less effect, but they can still crash Firestorm on the OnLive service. And basically, the way those work, Dennis, is they overload the graphics card, and then the viewer just goes put to desktop, which would cause the OnLive client to just suddenly close as well, I believe.
Yeah, it'll close automatically. Yeah, GTX 660s is what we have on our servers.
So yes, it would. Yes, graphics drivers will still work, but maybe not as quickly as somebody running a graphics crasher on you with your XP computer or something like that.
Right. So yeah, we would operate the same way. If SLGo, if Firestorm crashes for any reason whatsoever, the client will just close.
Okay. Next up, is there any news for German people who want to use SLGo but are not allowed to yet?
Oh, can you explain that a little bit? Yeah.
I knew this was coming. I could have predicted this one. So Germany is a bit of... number one, let me say this, is that we completely understand how big Second Life is in Germany. We completely understand how big the internet or the online community is in Germany, and it's somewhere that we want to be. Unfortunately, right now, there are issues with censorship in Germany, and you cannot publish a video game in Germany that has, say, blood in it. And if you look at OnLive as a company, essentially 95% of our games have bullets and guys dying and fighting, and so none of our publishers of other games are allowed to publish, or we have actually legal restrictions that say you cannot offer our game inside Germany. The way our systems are currently architected is that SLGo, when you sign up for an SLGo account, you actually have an OnLive account. You actually have access to our other services like our Play Pack and other things. You could actually log into the service and play some other games. And so if we open that to Germany, those other games would automatically show up there, and we just can't allow that right now. So the way we actually are going to fix this, is that we need to create a channel essentially that that only allows German allowed games, and SLGo would be one of them. And so at that point, we can then sort of eliminate the access to other games and only have a German game. But so I do believe it's one of our big untapped markets that we could get to. So it's a good question.
Okay. All right. If you access SL via SLGo, does that mean you no longer need to install Firestorm on your computer?
That's absolutely true. You can do OnLive in the little 6 megabyte download for OnLive means that you don't have to ever install Firestorm again on your computer, or any other game, by the way. It's one of the selling points that we have of our service is that we're installing the game on our servers, so you don't have to install it on your local machine. But I would tend to say that I use both. I have the native Firestorm because I'm chatting with you right now, for instance, and there are some features that we don't support, and so. But there are other times when it's nice to have SLGo because it's I'm somewhere remote, or I have my low-powered laptop, and then I can experience Second Life.
Great. And Tank actually answered in chat one of the questions that I was about to ask, which was whether 32-bit or 64-bit is in use at the moment. And Tank says it's 32. That's correct, yes?
That's a 32-bit version, and I really want to go to the 64-bit version. I believe we tried it. Did we try the 64-bit version? I can't remember. But I think that I remember what it was, is that if you'll notice inside inside Second Life, if you click on any of the HTTP links that open a browser, well, think about what's really happening is that you're clicking on a link that's actually inside of a cloud computer, and that would launch a browser inside the cloud computer, and we can't allow that for security reasons because you could download malware, you could get to our service, and so we had to put in a feature that when you clicked on a link, that it actually sent a signal to your local computer, and then it said open this on your local computer. And so that's how we do the browser launch. Unfortunately, when we started to launch, that particular feature wasn't supported by our 64-bit wrapper. And so we had to go back to the 32-bit, but they are actually fixing that. And so as soon as they get that done, we'll have a 64-bit version of Firestorm.
Okay, very cool. I'm trying to find the one that I just passed by. Just to confirm the following, you get a free week's trial on SLGo. If you then choose to continue, it's $9.95 a month, but you can cancel at any time. For instance, if you decide after 4 months you don't want to continue, you can just cancel, correct?
That's absolutely correct. In fact, when you cancel, we don't turn you off immediately. We just wait, and it's your subscription expires on the date of the anniversary of your subscription. So we don't turn you off immediately.
So if I canceled my subscription, so if my subscription renews at the beginning of every month and I canceled on the 15th, you would still give me that remaining 15 days.
Well, your subscription lasts forever, Jessica.
Well, no, but I'm just from the point of a user.
I know. It was a joke. Yes, that's exactly right. That's what would happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and an additional question on currency came in, and somebody asked about cryptocurrency such as Bitcoin as payment method.
Yeah, no plans for that yet, but I will. I'll take that back to the team, see what they say. Yeah, there's no plans for that right now.
Okay. There's a list entitled Firestorm Go Differences, which lists certain functions currently available in Firestorm that are not immediately available via SLGo. When will they at some point be included, and if so, when? We covered voice, but there may be others that people are concerned with.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the list, and I think that what the audience has to realize is there are certain, file pickers. That's a good one. We actually do support that right now. But think of how it works: is that we can probably allow you to export a file to your local computer, like save a snapshot, for instance. That would be perfectly fine. But what about taking stuff in? Like, what if there is a file picker for your local computer and it's basically sucking data in from your local computer? What's in that data? Is there malware in there? Is there some security risk? There might be something bad in that package that you've been uploading to us. So we've got to figure out where we can and where we cannot allow that. Does that make sense to everybody? I guess. It's a question of security inside our systems. There may be, at some point something we can just not allow because that's just the way we do it. I mean, if you want to import something into your local computer and kill it, that's your problem. But we have systems and we can't allow hackers to get into our systems at the time.
And that can compromise other people, other customers as well.
Absolutely.
Because it compromises the...
Honestly, if someone was able to hack into one of our app hosts or the cloud computers and got access there, there's a possibility that they could bring the entire system down. So we have to be very careful about who we allow in there and who we don't.
Okay, a couple of new questions came in. Can you upload assets from SLGo, such as models, textures, animations?
I think I just answered that. The answer is not right now. But I think that if you're uploading a texture, so what we have to do is we have to look at the code, right? If it's like, I want to upload a texture and there's just no possibility that any kind of malware could get into the system by you uploading a texture, sure we'd be able to do that. But we were going to have to look at the code and see if there's any way that someone could, like, by some nefarious reason, compromise us. So not right now, but we'd love to be able to support that. Anything?
Yep, sorry, I was on mute. I forgot to unmute my mic. Can you use OpenGrid on SLGo Firestorm?
I think so. Can't you, Jessica?
OpenSim, yes, you can.
OpenSim.
And it's been tested and it works quite well.
Okay, excellent. One person says there have been ways for SL players to acquire this person's IP address. Using SLGo, would this be possible or impossible?
Acquire the user's IP address?
The user's IP address.
Of course, OnLive has the user's IP address because we need to connect to their IP address. But the IP address that shows up to the Linden servers is actually the IP of OnLive. Does that make sense?
So, in other words, anybody trying to get your IP would actually be getting the IP address of the OnLive of the server that you're connected to.
Actually, we have only one IP address. The entire service has one IP address.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so it makes it really easy for Linden to track us.
Wow.
because the way it works is that there are certain services that we offer that require that you have a static IP. For instance, what if you signed up for a subscription based on your IP address, and then next time you connected to the service, you got a different IP address, then you'd have to sign up again, or you'd have to reestablish that connection. So we have just one IP address for the entire service.
Okay, here's an interesting question that has sort of been indirectly covered, but I think getting it out in the open is a good thing. When OnLive updates to newer versions of Firestorm, will they be doing clean installs? And if so, will there be a way to do settings backups?
Okay, so Dennis probably doesn't, and I haven't filled you in on all that yet. We have... actually, I'll fill you in on that, Dennis, in the new year.
Okay. I think I can answer part of the question.
Yeah.
Part of the question is that as updates come into both the Linden Viewer and to Firestorm, we need to stay in parity with those, because I don't know if has any of you used SLGo back many months, or maybe 6 months ago, but we were on a very, very old branch of the Linden code that did not support the mesh objects, and then when mesh was introduced, the avatars looked really weird. They were all stretched out into infinity, and on SLGo when you were using mesh, and it was reported to me for a number of people, and so we had to quickly go in and update to the mesh support. And so it's dangerous for us to not update. So we need to update, because if we miss a feature, or a feature comes and it could possibly break from an older version, we need to do that.
And we're going to keep OnLive on the latest builds. But as far as the clean install, I can't give you an answer on that yet, because we need to look into the complexities of all of that. As far as settings, backup and restore, ideally,
Dennis
yes.
is going to hate us.
Yeah, you're going to hate us on this one. As far as backup settings and restore settings, we're hoping to be able to get those to work. But that's all in the new year. And again, being able to import your settings into the viewer still creates that same risk factor for the OnLive services. In that basically you're uploading something from your computer potentially to the OnLive computers, so there has to be some way to verify those files are clean and that kind of thing.
Okay.
The aim is to, yes, provide that ability, hopefully.
But the ideal situation is that this I get too technical here again, but the ideal situation is that Firestorm runs in a virtual machine that's recreated every single time that you get online, and so then you have your own local file system, you have your own everything, and it really can't get into our systems because it's a virtual machine. I'm not sure if you know what a virtual machine is, but that's probably
really gone over a few heads, but
yeah, exactly. So.
Okay. Are there any noticeable differences aside from performance when switching between SLGo and standard SL?
Again, please?
Any noticeable differences aside from performance between SLGo and logging in on a standard SL viewer?
In terms of functionality, obviously the missing features are a concern, but no, I don't think there's anything you can't do. In fact, I've been called on, especially with the mobile versions, that people say they can't, like, for instance, right-click on things, and you can. There's just definitely a way to do it. It's just that they don't know, or they don't understand how the touch interfaces are actuated. And you can get to the menus, you can get to anything you want. Then we've actually removed certain features, and that's what you're talking about, this list of things that we've removed. But those were removed for security reasons only, not because we wanted to hinder Firestorm.
And I did post a link to the web page showing the differences in local.
Excellent. Okay, a follow-up question on the IP question. Ask if the one IP address isn't going to allow IP-banned users to re-enter and grief.
I believe that is only a temporary ban, and so I think it's for an hour and it times out. So that shouldn't be a big issue. But if it does, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to actually contact Linden, because that's something that's completely out of our control. They've implemented a banning system that's not compatible with our service.
Okay, next is, will we get access to debug settings in the OnLive version of Firestorm?
And the answer to that is, I think so. In fact,
no, not debug, and the reason why is because that actually provides access to file pickers, and they can't be disabled individually. That's why the advanced and developed menu are hidden, or at least the debug settings are hidden in the OnLive.
Well, I thought that I saw some debug settings that were essentially editors that you could change values of camera angles and that sort of thing.
Well, if it's possible for us to make some debugs available and still hide others, then that's a possibility.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest, is that we're going to have to do a kind of a survey of all the debug settings, and anything that requires a file picker right now that we're going to have to disable. But there might be some other ones there that would be more safe to use.
Okay, we're getting to the end of the questions I have down. There's just one really general one and two very pretty basic ones. So if anybody's question actually got missed, it was most likely because I folded it into somebody else's very similar question. So here's the general question. Any downsides to using the product?
Any downside to using the product? Well, I think we've probably covered them all. You don't get the full HD 1080p resolution that you do with the native viewer. There's no voice at the moment. I guess, and I think the biggest downside that people complain about, that I get griefed more than anything else, is that it costs money, and unfortunately I can't do anything about that, because OnLive is a very, very expensive service to run, and our data centers and servers are quite costly to maintain. So, but from a downside, from a usability standpoint, I think it's very usable. And if you have a good, clean connection, I actually use it quite a bit.
Okay, and here are the last two basic questions. There are a couple of last-minute ones people are trying to squeeze in, so maybe we can get to them in a second. But one person asked, and I know you covered this, but does OnLive support other MMOs or just SL? And another person is asking, how do you find it? So I thought those would be good ones to end on.
Okay, good. So OnLive is a bigger service than Second Life. It supports hundreds of other games. And the technology behind supporting those games is exactly the same as we do on SLGo. And so if you go to games.onlive.com, you can see what we have to offer. If you're interested in other games, and you can sign up for our Play Pack service, which has got 250 plus games on it, and we have a thing called Cloud Lift, which allows you to play your Steam games on your OnLive client. Stream your Steam games. You don't even have to. You can buy a game at Steam, and you don't even have to install it on your own computer, and then it becomes instantly playable on OnLive. So there's other services that we offer too. Lady, are you muted?
I did, yeah. All right. So, how are we on time? Because
we're really cutting it tight. We're half an hour over now, but right. We squeeze in the last couple.
Okay. How do I set the OnLive Firestorm viewer to clear my cache every time I log in?
It's done automatically. It was
so, but are you clearing? You're only clearing texture cache, though, right? Not inventory cache.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Currently, OnLive seems to require Mac users to use Windows-style keys, particularly the Control versus Command key. Will this ever change?
Oh, that's a bug in my Jira database back at work. Is that the Command key has to operate like a Command key does on the Mac, because it's just that. If someone presses Command Q, they should quit Firestorm. They shouldn't quit OnLive, and so yeah, that's a bug back at the work.
Okay. One person is asking about Music Stream. Can you access the Music Stream okay on OnLive?
Yeah, the audio is completely functional on OnLive. In fact, the audio is one of the things that is almost like a key element of of what makes OnLive really a special service is they did a lot of work to ensure that the audio was synchronized. Because think of if you're playing a video game, like say it's a fast twitch video game and you're shooting a gun, pow, 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 pow. That gun has got to be exactly in sync with the video, because it turns out that people are very, very, very sensitive to lags in audio because it's just the way our brains work. And so we have some very special technology to make sure that the audio is absolutely in sync with the video.
Okay, as a power user, I'd like to have certain information available that isn't available at the moment. For instance, develop, show info, show time, and show memory. Will that be coming back? That's, by the way, a menu path under the develop menu.
I wasn't aware of that, but I'll definitely take a look at it. Put it in the Jira. We'll take a look at it.
Okay. Is there any data that would help you decide if you need SLGo? I'm not quite sure what kind of data they're looking for, but
I don't quite understand the question. What kind of data for people who use SLGo? Or
that's all I've got.
Can you read it once more? I'll try to.
Is there any data that would help you decide if you need SLGo?
Oh, I would say yes. If you have the data is that I use Firestorm on a computer and I have it on the minimum graphic settings and it doesn't look like I like it and I crash a lot. Those are the data points. And if that's you, try SLGo. It might really, you could have, one of the things that people tell me all the time is they look at the ultra settings. Oh, by the way, Jessica, the current version defaults to ultra when they install it.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
So you come up and if you're used to like very, very narrow drawing distances or very shallow drawing distances, and you boot up SLGo and you look at the world and you're going to go, oh my God, it's beautiful. And that's really what we're all about. We're not really about, high resolution streaming. It's more about rich graphical experience. That's what SLGo will give you.
Okay, and I think I have only one question left. The questioner was looking for SLGo app for Apple iPad in the App Store, and I'm guessing that is not where you find it. So can you give us the link for where to go to locate SLGo?
I don't have a link in front of me, but if you go to the iTunes Store and on your computer, on your Mac or PC, if you go to the iTunes, open up iTunes and you go to the iTunes Store, and you type in SL space, it's not one word, it's two words, SL space go, our app will show up immediately, and you'll be able to download it in the Apple Store. And you can also get it at the Google Play Store. But the way you play it on your PC, which is where Firestorm is that you go to OnLive and you download the client from OnLive. If you go to OnLive, if you go to games.onlive.com/download, you can get the client there.
Excellent. And one person squeezed in, and this is going to be the last one, asks you as a joke, are you afraid of ATI and NVIDIA going after you because they will have less sales?
That's a good question. Let's see. Actually, we use NVIDIA cards in our servers, so they make money off of us.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, and so I'm not too worried about that so much. What you should realize though is that in our market there are a lot of new players. There's Amazon is coming into streaming applications called AppStream. Sony has a thing called Playcast, which is a streaming service from the PlayStation, and so there's all sorts of new streaming services that are coming available. In fact, it's really the way of the future. If you think about how it's all come down, look at how music happened. It went from records to CDs, and now someone handed me a CD at a party last night, and I was like, I don't even have a CD player anymore. I just download everything, and I'm gonna have to rip it to my computer in order to hear it. And I'm looking at movies went the same way too. You can see them in you had video discs and Blu-rays, and now they have Netflix. And so everything is kind of going that way. And games haven't been as quick because it requires a fast twitch. In other words, it requires an input it's an interactive experience, and it becomes much more of a technical challenge. But OnLive is the industry expert in this field, and so we're not too worried about it. And in fact, all of the activity in the cloud streaming services actually validates what we're doing. So we think we're in a very good place. And also we also have Firestorm, so nobody else does.
We've got to wrap it up. We're over time, and our poor videographers are want to go for Christmas. One last question I saw pop up in local. Where is the referral link for people if they want to refer their friends?
Let's see. I don't have it in front of me, but where can we post that somewhere?
We can post it up on. Somewhere. I'll make sure it gets posted somewhere.
Let me see if I can find it real quick.
While Dennis looks for that, I just want to do a shout out to Lapetian Liberty, Pet Love Pet Shop, Secret Rage, for filming this and streaming this for us over the Christmas holidays, and a special thank you to Safia Wittershins for organizing the filming and getting that all sorted. Thank you, Letta, for dealing with all the questions and organizing that, and Ed for just popping up on stage.
And there's
slfriends.onlive.com. So if you have a SLGo membership, you can refer people through there.
Yeah, and you get $10 for everybody.
I have a lot of friends.
Yeah.
Dennis, I want to thank you very much for coming. Obviously, there has been a lot of interest in this, and that shows me that this is benefiting a lot of people, and that's really the main thing. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, and I want everybody to know that, I really appreciate all of your comments, good or bad, because we want to make this thing a really good product, and we want you to be happy with it. So thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone.